Welcome back to GA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. Delighted to be joined here by Matthew Hurley from the GA Statsman podcast. We're going to be taking a look back at all the weekend's football action. Certainly a lot to discuss, a lot to break down. Definitely a lot of talking points. You had Galway, who obviously got a huge win against Roscommon, and obviously will be playing Sligo, who beat New York. We had wins for the likes of Clare and Kerry in Munster. Armagh and Down up in Ulster booked their place into an Ulster semi-final, and then a couple of big results in the Leinster Championship. Dublin with a 28-point win away to Laois, and the likes of Offaly, Kildare, and the other teams escaped me off the top of my head, but there we go. We'll certainly get to it all at some point. Loud actually with their comeback versus Westmeath. So Matthew, how's things first of all with yourself? I suppose crazy weekend of football and hurling. Like I don't know how many games you watched, but it was it was mad trying to keep up with it all, to be honest.
It was, yeah. Thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Yeah, it was a mental weekend. Like, you look at the Saturday game, even last night, Go with its coverage. It was sometimes blipping. Even I don't know, did you notice that Cavan and the Armagh game right before? Like the mic seemed to be off. It was it was a bad start, bad first impressions there, but yeah, I think I watched 5 games this weekend, so pretty good number. Like I had the time yesterday with the Saturday game, but just didn't have the time to keep up with it all today. Maybe because there was about, I think it was 7 minutes of additional time in the Waterford Limerick game. It ended up being pushed back, and geez, it was unbelievable there. But yeah, decent weekend for shocks, decent weekend of action and stuff like that. Decent weekend for myself as well, who Joanne Cantwell seemed to mention me on RT Radio yesterday, which was mad stuff. But there was another big thing. But I suppose the big thing was the quality, and I think it's kind of gone down this weekend. I don't know what everybody else thinks of that, but even the Armagh Cavan game last night, the Galway Roscommon, yes, it was a brilliant win for Galway, but the first half particularly was very, very poor stuff. Very well deserved win for Galway, but it's pretty poor stuff to watch. And to be honest, out of all the 5 games, I thought Waterford and Limerick was the best game out there, and I thought football was better than hurling for a long time. So there you go. But yeah, interesting weekend, and looking forward to discussing it.
Absolutely. Del Boy Gunner TV says, "Evening, gentlemen. I'm gutted for Roscommon. Galway were there for the taking." Yeah, there was definitely moments in the game, all right, where you felt like Roscommon could have taken advantage of Galway's blip at the start of the second half. Keane says, "Great win for Louth." It was, yeah. I think they were 8 or 9 points down at half time. I think 1-9 to 4 points down or something like that. So that's an extraordinary turnaround for Louth. But I suppose we'll start obviously with the action from the Conor Championship and the game that was earlier today. Galway 1-13, Roscommon 1-9. I suppose, as we were saying there, Galway starting the stronger, starting the faster. It was a very cagey game, I think, which was what a lot of people probably expected. I think the same traps that Roscommon set for Mayo, Galway didn't fall for them. And although Roscommon, came good in the second half and definitely had moments where it looked like they were going to come good, Galway's sort of, experience or sort of seniority managed to just see them through in the end.
It was a kind of a weird game. Even in the first half, Roscommon actually didn't score from play, and they had only 2 players that actually shot at the goal in Kieran Murtagh and Ben O'Carroll. And you were thinking, were they just tired after the Mayo game, after the energy they gave in that match? Galway seemed to come up trumps of the first half, but then the second half, Roscommon all of a sudden they bring on Cian McEwen for Donny Smith at half time, and suddenly it's just changed. And then Kieran Murtagh scores the goal, and you're thinking, there's a game on here. But Galway, fair play to them. They came back, roaring back into the game. Damian Coleman with a fortuitous goal, I have to say. The ball came off the post. I think Johnny Heaney took the shot and came off the post, and he was there. But Damian Coleman was outstanding today. I'm actually not sure how he didn't get man of the match on RT Sport today. 1-4. And I think he won 2 crucial turnovers or crucial blocks towards the end of the game as well, which was outstanding. Interesting stat, actually. 110 of Galway's 113 actually came from turnovers. I don't know what you think of that. Would you think Roscommon were pretty bad at just giving the ball away and they were punished for it, or were just Galway? They were vigorous from the start. So you look at, even for players that turned over the ball, I think 10 Galway players actually turned off the ball at least once. So that just shows you they wanted it more today. They wanted the kind of title, and they just were willing to give it an inch. But I suppose for Roscommon, it's not panic stations, as we were saying off air there. Roscommon are confirmed to be in pot 3 for the All-Ireland series. At least they're not in pot 4. So that's positives, I suppose, for Davy Burke and his side, but they will be disappointed, especially with the first half performance in today's game. And I think Kieran Murtagh mentioned it in the post-match interview as well afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. No, like, yeah, like an interesting statistic, all right, like definitely. And like it was a scrappy game at times, like even in the second half, both sides were giving the ball away. You were kind of wondering, did any side really want to go on and grasp this game? But obviously Damian Coleman's goal crucial in the second half. And as you were saying, like his performance in general, scoring 1-4 was top class stuff.
Awesome. It was stuff for the ages, really. And when you look at it, Shane Walsh was struggling. Ian Burke didn't play particularly well today. Like, I don't think he was on the ball particularly much. Johnny Heaney did his bit, but Comer was the real guy to stand up for Galway. Like, when you look at John Maher was good enough as well, Sean Kelly at fullback, but I just think Comer was the beating heart for Galway today. And even it probably epitomised his performance. Having scored so much, having contributed so much for Galway, he was the one at the back in additional time to block a Roscommon shot. And that just shows you his temperament in this game. And he definitely deserved it more than anything. But I could see why Kieran Murtagh actually got man of the match. Like I think it was 1-6 in the end, 1-3 from play, which is pretty good scoring. Like that's almost all of Roscommon scores. But in terms of, swinging a game one particular way, I think Damian Coleman definitely deserved it. Like he was outstanding defensively and offensively as well. Got that goal as well, kept his composure. He would have easily got 2 goals in the first half, but for brilliant Roscommon saves from Conor Carroll and Brian Stack as well. So I have to say Damian Coleman was absolutely outstanding, and he's definitely in the right frame of mind come the summer months.
Yeah, it's so crucial as well that they keep him fit as well, because you see how much better of a team that they are like when he's fit and for. And like even in the league final against Mayo, we could see clearly he was still a bit rusty, still a bit injured. But yeah, when he's fit and for, and it's absolutely he's a top class player altogether for this Galway team. And yeah, like from a Roscommon point of view, like obviously in the first half it was a little bit flat, as you said, like no points from play in the first half. Like what do you think was the reason for that? Like what was it? Like I know you could maybe look at it and think, were they tired or something of that nature? I don't really buy that, to be honest, just because like it was 2 weeks since the game against Mayo, and I know they put in quite a lot, but yeah, like it was just a little bit flat, which we wouldn't really associate with Davy Burke's Roscommon, having seen them play for the majority of this year so far.
And even more damning, actually, in the first half, they only won 2 turnovers in the entire first half. They actually got most of their possession from their kickouts. I think Ian Fitzmaurice mentioned this on RT commentary as well. Yes, they won 11 out of 11, and I think 20 out of 20 towards the end as well, which was brilliant. But when you look at the positions where they were collecting the ball, it was literally a short kickout, and Galway were just not putting pressure on them. What Galway did actually smart in the first half were just invite pressure, Roscommon pressure onto them, and then they'd pounce. And in fairness to Galway, they definitely did that. And what epitomised this, I think Johnny Heaney intercepted this ball in the middle of the field. I think it was one of the Roscommon wingbacks, maybe it was a Daly, kicking a crossfield ball. Heaney intercepts it. He kicks it straight into Comer, and that's Comer's first goal chance of the game. Roscommon should have copped on from that sort of instant, but as the game went on, I just think Galway were much better at turning over the ball than Roscommon were. Roscommon were sloppy, but I think Galway were in their face, and that was the main thing for Galway. But I suppose, like, when you look at the Mayo game, it was almost like perfection for Roscommon. It was almost a situation where you're not going to learn anything from David Burke's point of view. But from this particular game, Roscommon could take a lot of lessons. Like, for instance, don't give the ball away so easily. Have a bit of a crack off Galway. I think that was another issue too in the first half. They just weren't brave enough to have a bit of a go off them. Like, as I mentioned, only 2 players actually kicked for shots, in Ben O'Carroll and Kieran Murtagh, in the first half. That's pretty poor, I have to say. Like, it came, I think their first shot from play was around the 25th or 26th minute of the match. And that's not really good enough in intercounty football, and especially in senior football, especially in this game of this magnitude. But it is lessons for Davy Burke to learn from in the next few weeks, rather than the Mayo game where it was almost perfection. And I suppose, like Roscommon, with the players they have, I genuinely believe an All-Ireland semi-final is there for them, but they have to perform better than they did today to end the season on a high note.
Yeah, I think so. Like, and I suppose from a Galway point of view, like, does it show how far along they've come now as a team? Like the fact that, as you said, like Shane Walsh probably wasn't at his best today. I think in commentary they said he might have been nursing an injury or something of that nature. Ian Burke wasn't, 100% at it. There was a bit of an over reliance you felt on Damian Coleman to get the scores and sort of make it happen. But like the fact that they're able to win these games, like we are, like looking at Galway in the last couple of years, I always associated them under Porrick Joyce as a team that had to win playing beautiful football, and it was a bit chaotic. It was a bit like Mayo in some ways, where it was a bit chaotic. They'd win through brilliant, beautiful football, and when the going got tough, you'd question a little bit, especially with how they've been defensively. But this year, there definitely seems to be a switch, and like the fact they're able to grind through these games without always playing at their best, I think is a good sign. And they're definitely one of the front runners for Sam Maguire. You'd have to say so.
And with the players coming back into the team as well, like Killy McDay came on late, and John Maher's been playing out of his skin in midfield as well. And it's just the depth that Galway have at the moment. Like Mayo and Galway, I think they're two of the best teams in terms of depth at the moment. And speaking of depth, actually, Galway didn't need to bring on their big guns until additional time today. I think they brought on only one sub up until then. I think that was the exact number anyway. But that just shows you, like, the players were still willing to fight and give it their all up until the 70th minute. And Roscommon by that point only made 4 subs. And that just shows you the difference between the two sides. Like, Cian O'Neill definitely has something drilled into them, I have to say. Like, last year was his starting point. This year they've moved on. And I think Galway are definitely going to be a threat come hell or high water for the Sam Maguire this season. And they're almost certain to be in pot 1 for the Sam Maguire group stage as well. So no one will want to face them. No one will want to play them. And I think Galway are definitely up there with all-Ireland contenders. I think they would have learned a lot from the Kerry game last season. Like, even like I know I mentioned the subs and stuff like that and how they close out games, especially today and especially in games in the league. Kerry, prime example, match day 7. In the All-Ireland final last year, Galway did not close the game out properly. They performed well up until that point, but they didn't close it out properly. And Kerry just had that extra verve in them. And I think Galway have added the verve this season. I think they've done absolutely superb. And I think Galway are definitely on the road to doing great things in the All-Ireland this season. Like Dublin and Kerry, you'd argue, haven't been tested in the provincial championships and probably won't get tested in the future weeks. Whereas Galway got a massive test today. They got a massive shock at the start of the second half in that third quarter. And they ride it over the wave, in fairness to them. And they're getting tests. They're getting they're getting exposure and they're performing well. So all looking good for Galway at the moment.
Yeah, and they didn't panic as well at the start of the second half. Like when that goal went in from Kieran Murtagh, like they had a goal chance a couple of minutes previous as well. Like it just felt like Roscommon had really turned the screw and they didn't panic. Like they just kept going. They kept plugging away. Like even though there was a drop at the start of the second half, like they capitalised on the big moments. And I suppose, as Gavin says here, Roscommon had a lot of chances. Thought Comer's goal was a bit fluky, but despite the point difference, was bigger this year by a point, and I thought Roscommon had more fight in them than last year. And yeah, like it is a fair point, but I suppose like you do have to commend Damian Coleman at the same time. Like when that ball, he could have easily turned away, and as I think it was Peter Cook who took the effort. If that sails over the bar, like he could have easily just been jogging back to get into position, but instead he anticipated that the ball would hit the post and he'd be there first to put the ball on the back of the net. And you have to commend them for that. It's these fine margins, I think, that separate the good teams from the great teams.
It's actually funny because Shane Walsh did the exact same thing against Mayo the Connacht final years ago as well. I think it was 2021. It seems to be Galway are the only county that actually do that. It's just a common sense thing. But I don't know why counties actually don't do that in particular. Like as you rightly said there, and it was epitomised in a game between Cork and Louth last season. Like when Samuel Roy took the free for Louth, all the Louth players were jogging back into position for the kick-out. And you're thinking, what if the ball goes off the post? Who's going to be there to collect it? You're not just going to let the opposition just get the ball and move down the field after that. And in fairness to Galway, I know it's got common sense thing and more countries should be doing it. But the fact is, Galway are actually doing it. And you have to commend them for that, in fairness. And that probably does separate the good teams from the great teams. They anticipate every situation and they apply themselves to it. And fair play to Galway, they do that. And fair play to Damian Coleman. It might have been a fluke. Most people might have said that. But at the same time, I think it's just smart play. It's just common sense. And fair play to him for it.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Roscommon point of view, as you were saying there, like, I suppose no need to panic. A bit like Mayo, and in some ways, like, you know, they're going in as a pot 3 side. They'll have a bit of a break now before the group stages, and like, I think they'll have 1 home game and 2 away games. So going away from home might be a little bit difficult from a Roscommon point of view. But at the same time, like, they are a very good side, and as Cavan said there, like, they did show a lot of fight, in fairness. They did show a lot of fight, in fairness, in the second half, and you do have to commend them for that. And as you said, like, plenty of good players in the county, young players coming through. Davy Burke's first season as well. So, you know, no reasons for panic stations. And, you know, as a Dublin fan, even, like, they're definitely one of the pot 3 teams I wouldn't want to play, to be honest.
It's an interesting point, yeah. And even look at I think actually the demographic of the group stage, I think it's 1 home game, 1 away game, and 1 neutral venue. So, you know, that's going to be a difficult change. Like, I think the Super 8's actually employed the same structure years ago as well. So that's literally the same structure as the Super 8. But I think they'll be definitely up there with one of the best teams in pot 3. Like, you look at the pot 3 teams at the moment. I think Conor McKenna put this up on Twitter at the moment. He's going to be up already. Mayo, Tyrone, the losers of Monaghan and Derry, and Roscommon. That's the pot 3 teams. Like, yeah. I think Mayo and Tyrone will definitely fancy themselves as probably the best teams in it. But I definitely believe, like, Roscommon, we'll talk about Monaghan and Derry in the weeks to come as well, probably next week once that semi-final ends. But those are very good sides in that pot 3 draw. Nobody would want to face anybody in that draw. It's no softy at all in that side of the draw. I take Gavin's point as well about the fight. Like, I think in 2021, I think it was in the height as well, Galway were playing Roscommon. And Galway were absolutely slaughtering them in the first half. And there was just no fight from Roscommon coming out in the second half. Today, they at least show a fight. And you couldn't have said that about the Roscommon team in years gone by, despite the quality they possess. So fair play to them. They're definitely motoring on nicely. And David Burke has definitely got a tune out of them. And I think Roscommon will definitely be a threat come the future months and this summer.
Yeah, Jarlath says here, do 4th-place teams get any home games? I think they've 1 home game, I think.
Yeah.
1 home game. So, yeah, so at least for that, like, they will get a home game. In fairness, Tom says we'll sort out the Rossies later on in the quarters. I think that's the Mayo supporters there gunning for some revenge. But yeah, like, an interesting there when you say the pot 3 sides, like, you'd nearly rather be in pot 3 in some ways, because at least for Roscommon, they know they avoid Mayo, they avoid Tyrone, and they'll avoid the loser of Derry Monaghan. Like, there's a lot of great sides in there, so it's actually not necessarily a negative being in pot 3. Which you think, like, when you look at the standard of the sides that are going to be in pot 3 as opposed to pot 2, like, there's quite a bit of a difference there. Not to discredit any of those sides, but it's just the way the provincial championships have sort of gone this year.
It is a very good point, and normally pots would be connected to the Champions League and things like that, and usually you'd say pot 3 you could pick a few sides out of that, but in this All-Ireland Championship you can't pick any sides out of it. And look at the second pot, following on your point there, at the moment the second pot will read Sligo, Laois, Armagh and Clare. Like, Armagh are probably the only team there that look All-Ireland contenders. Like, Laois, they've done well in the last few years, but Roscommon will definitely want to crack off them. Sligo, yeah, without a doubt, like, their division, they've made some great strides, in fairness. Fair play to Tony McAtee's side, but their division 14. Clare, I think Clare and Armagh are probably the 2 ones that you'd probably want to avoid in that pot. Maybe Laois a small bit. But and even in the 4th pot at the moment, as a matter of interest, at the moment it's Westmeath, Donegal, Cork and Kildare. That isn't a bad pot either when you think about it. So there's going to be still a lot of good teams in the All-Ireland, and the first pot as it stands is Kerry, Dublin, Derry and Galway. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks in the All-Ireland series, and we'll definitely know our Sam Maguire and Tailteann Cup teams by the end of next weekend. So very exciting times.
Absolutely. Jarlath says anywhere to find the pots. I think it might be on ga.ie or might be up on the All Ireland Championship Wikipedia page. But obviously, like, these pots are not confirmed. We're just going off like what we think will happen. Like, obviously, Dublin and Kerry haven't won their provincial championships yet, but most likely they will, in fairness. But I suppose moving on then, the other game in the Connacht Championship was between Sligo and New York. It was Sligo 2-16, New York 6 points. Patrick O'Connor there getting 2 goals and a point, which were key for Sligo in what was a very comfortable win from a Sligo perspective. And the New York fairy tale, and unfortunately, ends for another year. I suppose they will play in the Tailteann Cup, in fairness.
Yeah, and as we were saying off air there, they'll probably beat Meath in the Tailteann Cup. So all's well in New York, and fair play to them for that. But yeah, this game, look, it was over. It was over at half time. Like, I watched this on GA Go. I thought it'd be a lot more interesting. I thought New York's fairy tale will definitely continue. But yeah, having said all that though about the excitement and all that, fair play to Sligo. Like, it could have been a banana skin like the Leitrim game over the last few weeks as well. But Sligo, they put the bait this game early, and they got out of dodge pretty early as well. Like Paddy O'Connor 2-1, Niall Murphy I think scored 5 points in this game, which was outstanding. Sean Carabine did well. Pat Spillane was drifting in and out in the first half, but he got 2 crucial scores in the second half. Like, I think Paul McNamara from centre back was very good for Sligo. I think he got 3 turnovers in the game, and he got a point as well. And he was a menace all day for New York. I thought he was excellent in this game. But yeah, New York, look, they were always going to be under the cosh, weren't they? Like, when you look at, I know it's an excuse. I think Toy mentioned it on Arsenal Fan TV a few years ago, but the weather. You look, it does play a factor, I have to say. Like, I didn't expect it to be that bad, because I'm over here in Scotland. It was nice and sunny yesterday, but I looked on GA Go then over Markridge Park. It was absolutely pelting rain. So, and I think even the first kick out that Sligo had, from Mick Cunningham, it was a huge turning point in the game, because Mick Cunningham hit a 45, wide, but Sligo just put the ball down. They kicked the ball out, and then they are on the attack for a goal. In New York were absolutely open. I think there was about 2 or 3 men back for New York at that point against 4 Sligo attackers, and that probably just set the tone in the game. Sligo were just more prepared for New York and Leitrim, and that was the story of the game in that sense. But yeah, fair play to New York. They'll go into the Tailteann Cup with confidence. But for Sligo, Connacht final, fair play to them, first since 2015. So, and their last Connacht title, a bit of a trivia, their last Connacht title was 2007. Who was their opponents in that game? Galway. Could history repeat itself?
There we go. The Sligo fans will certainly hope so. Certainly hope so. And obviously beat them at under 20 level most recently as well. So there definitely is something brewing in Sligo, in fairness. And as you were saying there, like, obviously when I was speaking with Shay Brady on my own preview show there during the week, we were saying, like, it's a difficult one for Sligo, because even if they win the game, they're probably not going to get that much credit, because it's against New York. It's a game you should be beating and everything else. And then if you lose, it's, a big embarrassment or whatever people were saying. I don't agree with that, but that's what people were saying when Leitrim lost. But to be fair, like, they just absolutely brushed them aside, and there was no nerves. There was no messing about. Like, this game was like, if this was a boxing match, it would have been stopped in the first few minutes. Like, Sligo were just, from the first minute to the last minute, by far and away the better side.
They were, and it probably just epitomised the quality in the teams as well. Like, even some of New York shot selection, some of their decision making as well in this game was pretty poor, and you could see the difference from being home in New York to being away in Markovich Park. At home, New York were absolutely comfortable. It seemed like it was their own playground. I excuse the pun now, but it was absolutely incredible to see that. But when you look their performance at Markovich Park, they just looked a bit uncomfortable, I thought, New York. And maybe that just comes with the more games they play in Ireland. Let's not forget, in the last 10 years or so, or even more than that, New York have only played 2 games in Ireland, against Offaly and Tullamore and against Sligo yesterday. And, that's not enough game time, in fairness. And, the main thing for New York really is to get more games, in all honesty. Like, as far as I know, New York are actually through to the preliminary quarter-final. So they're only guaranteed 1 game in the Tailteann Cup. That's not particularly good either. that they won't get the exposure. So I think they definitely would have wanted to win the game yesterday, because they would have been in the All-Ireland group stage. You would have been guaranteed at least four games then against Galway, and then the 3 group games. But now you're in the Tailteann Cup, you're only guaranteed one more game, and it's kind of kind of disappointing after that historic win over Leitrim, in my opinion, for those New York lads. But in fairness to them, they've had a good year so far, and they'll take that win against Leitrim long into the memory. But for Sligo, I think it was an excellent showing. And you were mentioning they wouldn't have got the credit. I definitely agree with you. And the stuff that happened with Leitrim as well was out of order online as well. And hopefully those keyboard warriors are actually punished severely after that. But yeah, look, Sligo can only beat what's in front of them. Like I'm sure, like Cork actually had the same. We're in the same boat last year when we beat Louth and Limerick. We're like, you should be beating Louth and Limerick, but you're just like, you can only beat what's in front of you. Sligo can't determine who they draw in the next round or whatever. So you have to give credit to Sligo as well, because Leitrim took their eye off the ball and lost. If Sligo took eye off the ball and they lost, there would have been absolute condemnation. But the reality was they stuck to their principles. They got the job done early, and you have to give them credit for that. I give them credit anyway. I'm not sure would the various media outlets give them much credit though.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Sligo perspective, like, would you give them much of a chance against Galway? Like, I think it would be a tall order if they were to go and dethrone Galway, and it would certainly be one of the biggest provincial shocks, and probably of all time. And obviously they are, there is a lot of underage players there at the minute. They've plenty of good players, but you'd imagine it probably just would be a step too far against Galway in the Connacht final.
Well, history would suggest that they have a chance against Galway. I definitely think they have a chance. Like, they beat Galway in 2010 as well in the semi-final. And I'm just trying to actually remember the lad. Well, I think Galway gave them quite a trimming years ago, but that was when Sligo was on a low ebb. But once Sligo were, pushing forward as a country, they seemed to get the better of Galway in those years. But I just think Galway are way better now than they were 2010, 2007. And that's the reality of it. And I think Galway would definitely get the job done against Sligo. But it may be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think Sligo will actually disgrace themselves in the Connacht final. I think they'll definitely do something where it could be under 10 points. And I think that would be a mini victory for Sligo in many ways. They'll go into the All-Ireland series and look, 3 games against top opposition. That will always improve them going into a Division 4 or Division 3 campaign next season. And Division 3 will be up there for contention for promotion and all that. There is some tough teams in it, but I think Sligo, the trajectory they're on, I think they'll definitely fancy their chances of having a run in Division 3 and ultimately getting back to Division 2. So maybe this game against Galway is the start of that upward trajectory.
Yeah, no, it is a fair point, and I do agree as well. Like, I don't think it'll be over 10, 15 points. I don't think it'll be an absolute walkover, in fairness. And I think with it being a Connacht final as well, I'm sure Sligo will want to bring their A game and everything else. Gavin says here, wish New York could somehow play in the Tailteann Cup group stages instead of the quarterfinals, because I'd fancy them against a Wexford rather than a Cavan. It's a fair point, isn't it? Like, and I don't know, is there is there a way to try to get New York maybe more involved, do you think, in the, maybe not necessarily in the league, but at least in the chat? Like, because if they had a won today, they would have went into the All-Ireland group stages. So they would have been going into a group stage had they've won today. So why not allow them in the Tailteann Cup group stages? I know it's tough with logistics and obviously, finance and everything else, but I don't know. Like, I'm sure the GA has enough money to be helping New York out, surely. Like,
surely does when you think about it. But even something small, have a 5-team group.
Yeah.
Like, it's something like that. But if the GA want to keep a 14 group and all that, who would you kick out of there? London? I don't know really, but maybe London, because they've got a load of games over the last few years, whereas New York haven't. But for me, I think the 5-team group is the obvious solution going forward for New York. Like, what harm could it do? Like, 1 extra week of championship football. And this is my point about the preliminary quarterfinals and in the Tailteann Cup and the All-Ireland series. It's a waste of time. Why can't you just have first place, second place, quarterfinals done? I mean, why do the GA need to stress themselves and do this? Like, whereas if you have a 5-team group with New York in it, you could then have that week to finish off that group stage. So I think the GA kind of missed a trick there, not having a 5-team group. But certainly, I would have had a 5-team group. I know it wouldn't have been in the status quo and all that, but at the same time, I just think the preliminary quarterfinals has just raised so many problems that the GA could have avoided, and they could have even had a 5-team group with New York in it, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, no, it is a fair point. Like, and I do think we should be trying to get New York more involved. In fairness, but I suppose it is a tricky one, and I suppose it's not easy for the players as well to be making the trip over when they obviously have work commitments back in New York as well, and then obviously the same for teams that are traveling over. But definitely something I think that they should look into. We'll move on to the Ulster Championship then. It was Armagh 114, Cavan 12 points. Very comfortable result in the end for Armagh. Like, I was disappointed with Cavan, to be honest. Like, I thought in the first, I didn't see much of the second half, to be honest, but from watching the first half, like, they just seemed very, very flat, and they didn't really get going at all. And it was very, very light work for Armagh, which, we were all expecting this to be a much closer game than it eventually was.
Yeah, and I thought the first half would definitely be more competitive than it was, like, in fairness. But no, you have to give credit to Armagh. They went out of the blocks completely, and Cavan just didn't. Like, I think one particular stat just seals the game and puts it away in a book or whatever. Cavan 16 points, Armagh 3. Just summed it up. Cavan, I just think Cavan, they were kind of they were very poor at their shot selection last night. They were nearly kicking shots for the win when they should have been getting into the scoring zone. I think Michael Murphy on GA Go was blue in the face trying to say this on commentary. I don't know how many times he said it. You could literally, I think it was about 5 or 6 times he said this, and Cavan was still getting it on the wings and shooting it from there. And it wasn't just a particular player, a particular set of players. It was literally the whole team. I think Paddy Lynch had a few examples of that. Jonathan McCabe had an example. Garrod McKiernan in the second half. He wasn't really in it in the first half. And then the Ben Creeley goal. Like, there was a few arguments. Ben Creeley was in the square for the goal. Again, I was only watching in the moment. So I have to look at it again. But on live viewing, I didn't think it was a square ball at all. I don't know what was the condemnation about that. But one player that I want to talk about, Conor Turbot. He got 7 points last night, 8 shots. 23 shots in the last 3 games, 20 points. That's incredible form. And like, it's funny, isn't it? Because the last of those 3 games was against Tyrone, or the first of those 3 games in that run. And the Tyrone game before that, Rian O'Neill had the supposed fight with Kieran McGeeney, and you were thinking, who's going to step up to the plate? Isn't it amazing how Conor Turbot just steps up as soon as that happens? And it's incredible form from him, and really good form. Like, in fairness, Shane McPardon had a good game as well, Ethan Rafferty. But yeah, Cavan were very, very, very disappointing last night. It was almost like the effort was there for Cavan, but the execution wasn't. And that just was the end of the story there. But for Armagh, I think they looked good last night. Down will be a tough threat in the semi-final next week. But for Cavan, look, Tailteann Cup, and I think Cavan will be favourites for it, but they'll have to prove in their shooting massively to win the Tailteann Cup this season.
Yeah, I think so as well. And as you said there, like with Conor Turbot obviously coming in, kicking 7 points, obviously Ben Creeley getting himself a goal as well. And I suppose it is positive for Armagh. Like, obviously without Rian O'Neill, they're still able to find the players to step up and obviously get the job done. And yeah, like, I suppose from a Cavan point of view, just very flat and yeah, unusual, to be honest with you. I'm not sure why their approach was like that, because usually Cavan, like in the Ulster Championship, like, it's all guns blazing. Like, especially if you remember them against Donegal last year, I thought they were very unlucky not to come through and win that game. So, like, you're looking at it and thinking, Cavan or it's hard to know really why Cavan were so flat.
And you would think with so much on the line, like a Sam Maguire place, Cavan would definitely be up for it. And they just weren't in the first half for some reason. I don't know what it was. Like, I think the score at half time, was about 110 to 6 points at half time. That was a 7-point margin. Cavan were never going to come back after that. I know Armagh had a pretty bad second half, but in fairness to Cavan, look, they actually showed a bit of fight in the second half, but it was just the execution again, and that was the end of the story there. And yeah, but what I will say about Rian O'Neill about Armagh, he actually came on late on the game, and he saved an almost certain goal at the end as well. So fair play to Rian O'Neill coming on and proving all the doubters wrong, and with the bikini fights and all that, and he just saved a certain goal, and fair play to Rian O'Neill for that. But for Cavan, look, they have to improve on the way they play the game in the first half. I just think they need to be more attacking, play to their strengths. Like, they have excellent forwards in Gareth McKiernan, Paddy Lynch, Jonathan McCabe, like Tiernan Madden's a good player coming on. Oisin Kiernan's a good attacking defender. Like, they have excellent players, Cavan. You're just thinking, let the shackles off. Go for it. What's the worst that can happen last night? I think Cavan would have been disappointed with the performance as well, because they just didn't go for it. And it's all right. A lot of teams went for it and got punished badly. Like, I'm sure Laois did against Dublin today. Tip maybe a bit against Kerry as well. They got hammered, but at least they gave it a bit of a go. Cavan, I just don't think they gave us enough in the first half, particularly. And that was what really disappointed Mickey Graham. And the wides as well is a big, big thing. And they definitely have to improve on that. Going into the Tailteann Cup, they'll definitely be favourites for it, considering Meath's performances. For Manuel, they've beaten them before. So you'd have to say Cavan are favourites for it. But they have to improve massively to win it.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. Like, definitely a lot of room for improvement from a Cavan perspective. The other Ulster semi-final then, or Ulster quarter-final I should say, was Down 2-13, Donegal 1-11. If you had predicted a scoreline like this before a ball was kicked this year, you definitely would have been surprised. But considering how Donegal have looked this year, a bit of a renaissance obviously going on in Down at the minute, obviously with Conor Laverty going in there, and obviously some of the Kilcoo players coming back into the team. And what a result, what a win, and what a day for Down football.
It usually would be. You mentioned this at the start of your introduction to this game as well. Like, it normally would have been a shock looking at this scoreline, but look at Donegal's form. Donegal, what is going on up there? Like, the management seems to be all over the place. Like, the players don't seem to give it. Like, in fairness, it was 1-4 to 1-4 at halftime. I was tracking this game on Scorpio, the app there. And Donegal seemed to be, holding their own. But then Down score a penalty through Pat Haverin, and suddenly it's done. And, Donegal just down tools. And I think credit has to go to Down, in fairness to them. Like, last year, let's not forget, Down were the similar position to Donegal, and this time in Division 2, a lower division. They were an absolute mess last season. You were thinking, where is Down football going? They bring in Laverty. There's a good feel around the camp. The Kilcoo players are back, and fair play to them. They're getting a tune out of them, and it's almost like the fortunes have kind of flipped. Donegal seem to be in disarray, and Down, there's a good feel around the camp, and fair play to Down for winning it. Pat Haverin is an outstanding forward. Ryan Johnston, and Ryan Johnston is another player actually that has dipped in and out of the panel, and you were thinking, is he going to play? Is he going to stay? Whatever. But he scored 3 points today from centre forward. An exceptional performance, I have to say. Eamon Brannigan, I think his name is, or Eugene Brannigan, I think, get number 15. He got a point as well, and he said he would never play for Down, and he's in the starting 15. So fair play to Down for throwing off the shackles and performing well. But I think, unfortunately for Down, maybe Clare's performance against Cork, or many other performances in the last few weeks, New York's performance against Leitrim was much more talked about, because the likes of Cork and Leitrim weren't seen in disarray. But Donegal, unfortunately for Down, they are in utter disarray at the moment. And to be honest, at the start of the week, I would have seen it coming as well. I think I would have said around 5 points. I think I changed my prediction on Fanzo on the prediction. I'm not sure. I think I said 5 points. I'll have to check it again tonight, but it was something around those margins anyway. So that just tells you I wasn't shocked by the results at all. And Donegal, again, on a downward spiral. You wonder what will happen to them in the All-Ireland series. If they're in a group of death, which they most likely will be in, they're going to get a fair few hammerings in the All-Ireland this season. But for Down, it's a lifeline to get into the Sam Maguire. But even if they don't get into Sam Maguire, I think Down will definitely be favourites for the Tailteann Cup this season. If you look at Cavan, their performance last night, the wides, they had a Cavan are so sloppy in particular games. I think Down will definitely fancy their chances. Definitely to get to Croke Park for a semi-final, but definitely winning it is definitely up there for them too.
Yeah, like, and I suppose, like, I've seen online and a lot of Down fans and I suppose general GA, I suppose enthusiasts probably saying that maybe Down are sort of like they're reminding people maybe of Derry, and I do look at that in a sort of similar way where Derry were in disarray for a long time. A lot of their, a lot of their players were just playing with their clubs and weren't committing to the county side. Rory Gallagher goes in and just completely galvanises them. Conor Glass obviously comes back from AFL as well. And like looking at it from a Down perspective, wouldn't go as far as that. There has been a little bit of underage success here and there, a few good players. Club levels looked all right, but like it does seem like Conor Laverty and Down are building something, and like they won't be going into that Armagh game just to take part. Like they'll look at this as an opportunity, and it is a big opportunity because although Armagh did brush Cavan aside, they weren't really hugely tested in that game. And when you look at it from an Armagh perspective as well, like as we said in the league, they weren't particularly brilliant. So like it's not a foregone conclusion that Armagh beats them.
It isn't, absolutely. I'd be definitely more wary of Down beating Armagh, being shocked next week. In fairness, like Down seem to be, there's a good tune of them. Conor Laverty seems to get a good tactics there. But I looked at the team recently in the Scorpio app there. I counted, correct me if I'm wrong now, but I think there was 5 Kilcoo players on the team today in the starting 15. That's a third of the team, in fairness to Down. I think Eugene Brannigan's one. Johnston's another, actually. So that's nearly 6, actually. Ryan Johnston, Caleb Doherty, Ryan McAvoy, that's 4. Micheál Rooney and Noel Kane and goal. Yeah, that's 6. So that's over a third of the team. And fair play to Down for that, for getting the players involved from Kilcoo. And you see, once Kilcoo were up in their pomp in the last few seasons, you see what they did to Kilmacud in that All-Ireland final. You see what they did to Ballybone in years gone by as well. And you see what they've done to many other teams. They're an excellent side, Kilcoo, in fairness. And to have 6 of them players committing to the Down starting 15, never mind the bench, that's incredible. And that will only stem down even further. And maybe we're just forgetting that Cavan and Fermanagh are pretty good teams as well. And they finished ahead of Down. They beat Down. And I think Down, if they would have focused more on their defence for Sean Quigley goal in that game against Fermanagh, they'd be a Division 2 team. So, they weren't far off Division 2. They have the Kilcoo players back, the feel-good factors back for Down. And I think they'll be definitely a threat come the game against Armagh. And even if they lose that, I think I would have them. I know Cavan have done well over the last few years, and they got to a Tailteann Cup final last season and would be seen as favourites. But in my eyes, Down would be favourites. Looking at the Kilcoo players back, the feel-good factor, Conor Laverty's impact. And Conor Laverty's actually, I think, the under-20 manager as well. And to have him on both teams, and the under-20s are in a final as well on Wednesday against Derry. If they win that, you've seen what they did to Sligo, getting to a kind of final, winning an under-20, winning a minor championship, their schools teams. Down are kind of team coming up as well. And isn't it great, actually, Aaron, to see teams like Down and Sligo come back to the fore, and we have more teams competing at the top level or even close to it? It's absolutely brilliant.
No, it definitely is. Like, and even like that's been one thing that I've really enjoyed about Derry's rise in the last couple of years. And even if you think back to the likes of Carlow, and they had a bit of a rise as well. Like, it's great to see new teams coming along and being competitive. Like, at the end of the day, we all want competitive games. We want the best championship possible, and for that to happen, we need more teams improving and kicking on. So yeah, no, would 100% agree. We'll have a look at the games in the Munster Championship. Then we'll start with Clare versus Limerick. It was Clare 114, Limerick 14 points. Big result for Clare and for Colm Collins. They booked themselves into a first Munster final since 2012. Big result for Clare, and maybe a bit more of a sticky game than what they would have anticipated, considering Limerick were very much the whipping boys of Division 2, and Clare gave them an absolute hammering on the final day of the league. But yeah, it was a bit of a tricky game, but in the end, Clare get the job done.
And fair play to Clare. It normally would have been a sticky game like last season. You definitely point towards that, and you were thinking Clare have to win this game, and they eventually lose in a penalty shootout. And after beating Cork, it would have been huge pressure on Clare to get to Munster final. And They did, in fairness to them. Keelan Sexton hitting the goal early, and Clare just ran on steam after that, and fair play to them for that win. And Keelan Sexton again, he got 1-4 last night all from play. There's 1-8 from play in 2 games. Like I'm telling you, he's actually a forward on form. He's on razor sharp form, and Clare seem to be doing well. And I've seen as well in the Saturday game, Killian Ruan actually got a similar point to the one he scored against Cork. The one he scored against Limerick was the exact same. You know, the last point for Clare, fisted it over the bar, and to have that energy in the legs as well, going to the last few minutes in a tough game. Fair play to them. In 2 games in a row, not just 1, and fair play to them as well. And Limerick, look, they gave it a fight, in fairness to them. They did not let Clare out easy, and I didn't think they would either. Mark McCarthy's a passionate coach as well. Ian Corbett, Cian Sheehan played pretty well. I think Killian Fahy played his part as well in some parts. But Sean O'Dea scored a point from full back. Brian Donovan, James Nocta scored 3 points, and he was one of the top scorers in Division 2. So pretty good performance from Limerick all over the field. But fair play to Clare, fair play to getting the Munster final. And it's been a long time coming, hasn't it, for Clare? Like 11 years without a Munster final. I know the progress that Cullen Collins has made it and praised, but they really had to reach a Munster final. And I'm just delighted for Cullen Collins and his team to get over the line. And it comes a time in the year where everybody writes off Clare. Every single media outlet, they write off Clare without a fuss, really. And I've been saying over the years, maybe it's just me being a Munster man, Clare are a very, very good side. Like, let's not forget, Clare beat Roscommon last year, and Roscommon are up there one of the best teams in Ireland. And you're suddenly saying Clare will get a hammering off Kerry, and Kerry are much better playing Cork. Like, I mean, some people actually don't make sense at the moment. Like, there's a lot of talk on Twitter, and speaking of Twitter as well, there's actually a lot of talk of the Clare-Kerry Munster final being on in Cusack Park rather than the Gaelic grounds. Play it in Cusack Park, please, Munster GA, please do it. Like, I know they won't, because, the situation with Cork over the last few seasons, Kerry were begging to play in Fitzgerald Stadium rather than Páirc Uí Rinn last season, and then during a COVID-19 pandemic, they decided to play in Fitzgerald Stadium rather than Páirc Uí Chaoimh or the Gaelic grounds that time. Just ignore Kerry this point, please, Munster GA, and play it in Cusack Park. Make it more of a game. And that's all we're asking for. But as we all know, Munster GA, it's going to be on in the Gaelic grounds. We just know what's going to happen, and ultimately Kerry might get another easy run on it. But if it's on in Cusack Park, it will definitely be more of a spectacle. The place will be hopping, and Clare will definitely have football on the rise. And fair play to them for getting to this Munster final. Cullen Collins definitely deserves it.
Absolutely. Yeah, like it seems like this is basically what Clare have been working towards. Like, this is the icing on the cake. Like, this is the one thing that they hadn't achieved, in the Colin Collins era. They've been so good in Division 2 for so long. And obviously in Munster, it's tough for them when they're in, when you come up against Kerry, when you face them. And obviously there was numerous years where Clare kept drawing Kerry, in the championship, in the Munster Championship in the early rounds. So, like, it's great that they finally have their moment. And, like, as you said, like, I think we'd all envisage Kerry to win the game, but like Clare are a good side, and if Clare bring what we know they can bring, it could be a closer game than people expect. Like, they nearly beat Dublin, and a lot of people have Dublin as one of the All-Ireland contenders. I know it was in the league, and people maybe look at different things, but I don't think it's as given. Like, I think Kerry will win, but I don't think it will be 10, 15 points. I think it could be 7 or 8, maybe even less.
Yeah. I'll definitely give Clare a chance of even, competing well in the first half. Because let's not forget again, Clare were a last 8 team last season, and deservedly were in their place. Like, they beat Roscommon, and that was a Roscommon team in the league that should have beat Kerry and Austin Stack Park. I don't know why people come up with these assumptions that Clare will actually roll over against Kerry. Yes, I do think Kerry will win the game as well, eventually. But I think Clare will definitely put it up to them. They were Division 2 team for every year since about 2016 or 2017. That takes guts. And I think Clare will definitely put it up to Kerry. And when you look at the Clare team, it's not just, a situation in Dublin and Leinster, like against Laois today. Laois have a few good players and all that in their forward line, and they're good to catch fire and things. They have to catch fire. But when you look at Clare, they are just 1 or 2 players that is at the same level as Kerry. When you look at their players at the moment, Keelan Sexton, 1-8 in his last 2 games from play. Owen Cleary, outstanding footballer. Emma McMahon, one of the stars in the Sigerson Cup, would you well. Pierce Lillis, excellent man marker. Dara Bohannon, Darren O'Neill, Carl O'Connor, Daniel Walsh in the UL team as well. Jamie Malone has been excellent for Clare down through the years. Stephen Ryan is finding form and goal. Manus Doherty is one of the best cornerbacks in Munster at the moment. Why can't they challenge Kerry? I think Clare will definitely put up a fight against Kerry, and just to make it even more of a contest, Munster GA should have it in Cusack Park rather than the Gaelic grounds or Clare, just to give it a bit of a bit more spice to the occasion. And it will be an absolutely rocking place if it's on Cusack Park. But unfortunately, if it's on the Gaelic grounds or Fitzgerald Stadium, it would probably be a half a capacity stadium, and it won't be much of a contest after that. And but in fairness, Clare, looking at the players they have, if it's on in Cusack Park, I'll definitely give Clare a chance of rattling Kerry's feathers a small bit.
Yeah, no, it is a fair point in fairness, and I suppose like we obviously seen the Clare under 20s give the Kerry under 20s a good rattle during the week as well. So the production line in Clare is definitely not slowing down, which is obviously great to see. Kerry, they booked themselves obviously in the Munster final, as we were saying. They beat Tipperary 25 points to 5 points. I suppose not a lot really to say on this one. Went as expected. Was just the fact there was no score of in the opening 10 minutes was a little bit unusual, to be honest with you. But once Kerry got going, it was game over, wasn't it?
You know what? The montage on the Saturday game was actually better than this game. You could basically play the montage or Marty going to Fossa for a walk or something. I think Kieran Whelan actually mentioned in the Sunday game, he basically could have gone down to the National Park. He could have gone out to Fossa to go for a walk. He could have gone, to take a picture next to Puck, the whatever. I think it's in Clorvlin. Puck, I think it's a reindeer, that statue, and Marty could have just taken a picture there, and you would have thought, okay, he spent a good few hours there, and fair play to Marty for that. But instead, he had to go to Fitzgerald Stadium and watch a training match, literally. Again, Aaron, I'm just, there was nothing much to talk about in the game. 20-point margin. The only positive, I suppose, I actually predicted it bang on in Fanzo. For a match predictor, I said Kerry would win by 20 points, and they did. So that was a bit of positive. I got 30 points out of that. So fair play to me for that, and fair play to Kerry for chipping it on with the scores. But look, on a serious note, why do we keep having these games? I've seen your kind of meaty rant on the JMAC podcast as well about these sorts of games. We'll get on to Dublin Laois in a minute as well. But what was the point of this game? It was a waste of time. I usually go and watch games back at GA Go because I have to pass and all that. I got it in the early work in December, but I was just like, I couldn't be arsed watching this game. Couldn't be bothered. It was just a training ground for Kerry. It was nothing much. Tip will go into the Tailteann Cup with the greater confidence. Marty will go on another escapade with the horse and back and things like that. And that's about it. That's all I can say. And RT did very well at the montage, but unfortunately the game did not live up. Well, it did live up to expectations in a sense, but wasn't the game, was it, Aaron, at all?
No, and like you were looking at it and thinking like there was just nothing you could learn from a Kerry perspective. Like obviously it was good to see Paul Gainey back and Tony Brosnan kicking 5 points, but I watched the game and it was like, I nearly felt like I was watching a game of golf, or something like that. Like it was just a very sort of like there was no atmosphere. There was nothing at all. It was just it was just like it was like an exhibition game or or something of that nature. And I suppose another game that was like that, we might as well, I suppose, stay on the same trend, and that was Dublin's win against Laois earlier today. 4 goals and 30 points, which is absolutely outrageous. They were 22 points up after half an hour, and to be honest with you, like this could have been worse as well. Like Dublin stopped playing in the second half. Absolute madness altogether, and 28-point win, crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure you were watching the game, Aaron. So I'm going to ask you this: how many people were actually at the game? Surely there was empty seats.
There definitely was empty seats. All right, I think the fact it was in Portlaoise, it's a small stadium. obviously a good bit of Dublin fans that travel down. You know, plenty of Laois fans, you know, passionate Laois fans will want to come to support their county, but it was a very dead atmosphere. Like, as soon as I think Dublin kicked 3 goals in the opening 15 minutes. As soon as they all went in, yeah, it was game over. You know, and I'm sure people probably left, you know, before the final whistle.
And they would have gone to see the Scarecrows or go to the Chipper. That would have been more entertaining, to be honest. And you could make all the jokes you want. We're trying to lighten the mood and all that. And I seen you were trying to lighten the mood with the Kerry game yesterday. But like, I know people want the provincial championships for historic relevance and all that. Like, I remember the provincial championships, Michael Cousins scoring that goal against Kerry. That will live with me forever, that moment with Cork beat Kerry. But if we're going to have these games, what's the point? Seriously, we know what's going to happen. So why are we actually playing these games? I know Laois and Tipperary fans will say it's a disgrace that we're talking about these teams like that, but Laois and Tipperary are Division 4 teams. Kerry and Dublin are 2 of the best teams in the country. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's...
Is the only solution maybe to do something similar to the ladies' football provincial championships, where I believe, is it just Division 1 and Division 2 teams, I think, that basically just compete in basically like either a group stages or just a straight knockout. Like the Connacht final is just Galway versus Mayo. Like maybe that's something similar we need to do, because then the Ulster Championship will remain intact. The Connacht I know, like, it's a difficult one, because you look at a side like Sligo getting to play in a Connacht final, and the fact that a moment like them comes for them, that like they wouldn't get that in this type of format. But at the same time, like, something has to give, because we can't just keep seeing these games over and over again. Like, we should just go straight into Dublin Kildare, Louth Offaly.
Yeah, exactly. So on the Ladies Football Championship, you see those games in provincial championships. Like, I think in Leinster this year, you've Laois, Meath and Dublin. 3 teams that are nearly, like, Meath and Dublin are the 2 best teams in the country, but Laois will definitely put it up to them with Mo Early and their own Fitzpatrick in their team. But it's those 3 teams only. Imagine Dublin ladies coming up against Carlow ladies. It'll absolutely be a whitewash, like it was today. And it's definitely a good solution, like, in fairness. Like, I remember it goes back years ago, in fairness, in the 2010s, when you think about it. I think Waterford were in the semi-final in Munster. They played against Kerry. They scored nothing in the second half, I can remember as well. Why do we still have these games? Leitrim, I think, got hammered by Mayo as well in 2021. We're going to still have these games, and you know, and your solution with us, the provincial championships, it won't affect Ulster. That's the argument being put across. It won't affect Ulster, because you'd have 8 teams in Ulster competing in the Ulster quarterfinals, and then you have Antrim, who will only go into the junior championship and say things or whatever way the GA, you know, decide to format it. But that's the only way. That's the only way you then avoid these games and things like that. It's just ridiculous at this point. Why you'd have these games? It's a waste of time. It's literally a waste of time for people reporting on the games. It's a waste of time for fans. It's a waste of money. Why do we have these games? Simply put, like the Kerry Tipperary game yesterday was. Look, I only watched the highlights and I was bored. Imagine watching the full. I know you watched the full game, Aaron. I can't imagine the amount of pain you went through watching that. You know, it's pretty bad, and the GA need to change it sooner rather than later. Stick to the Ladies Championship. I know they don't want to bite their tongue and say that the Ladies Championship have done it right and the GA have done it wrong, but it has to be done. Simply has to be done, and that's the only way forward after this.
Yeah, I think so as well. And like, even at best, you could do Division 1, 2, and 3 go into the provincial championship. So then you're still leaving room for some, you know, kind of shocks. Because in fairness, to have, you know, Offaly obviously beating Meath today, Division 3 beating a Division 2 side. You know, it does happen in fairness. But it definitely is something, in my opinion, that they definitely do need to look at. And I suppose, speaking of Offaly and Meath, I suppose one of the results of the weekend, I think, Offaly 1-11, Meath 10 points. Offaly were 9 points up at half time. I think they kicked 1-5 before Meath even scored their first point. And Meath football is in some mess.
I'd say if you go to the most passionate Cork fans and go to the most passionate Dublin fans and put a camera on them, they'll be dancing on tables after this. You know, but Yeah, look, for me, it's where do they go from here? Where do they go from here? It's absolutely diabolical what has happened in Meath football over the last few seasons. It's pretty poor. When you look at it, like 1-4, 1-5 conceded, and they didn't even score against Offaly, who were a mid-table Division 3 team. Where does Meath football go from here? That's the main thing. But you have to credit Offaly and fairness to them. They stood up, and fair play to them for that. You have to say. So you have to say a very good game for Offaly in fairness, and fair play to them for winning this game. But for me, Tailteann Cup football, and honestly, with the way Meath football is going, I don't think they'll win that. And before I cut to you, Aaron, 6 games, 1 draw, 5 losses. Meath deserve to be in the Tailteann Cup without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if that was Colm O'Rourke maybe knocking at your door there or something. I don't know, something going on there, like the Meath fans maybe trying to like stage an entry or something. But yeah, no, I do agree. Like I think it's hard to really know what's happened with Meath. And I know obviously we were joking there about saying, like, obviously, there's rivalry in sport, so obviously there's a part of me that is happy to see Meath fail. Like Meath fans would be happy to see Dublin fail. Like that's you'd be happy to see Kerry fail, they'd be happy to see Cork fail. But at the same time, though, like I like the neutral part of me and the GAA fan in me wants a good Meath, because a good Meath results in a better Leinster Championship, results in a better All-Ireland Championship. And Meath are, a fanatical football mad county. Like, you see the colours that they brought to the All-Ireland Ladies football final a couple of years ago. And even you see what they've done, with the minors as well. So yeah, it's really mad to see what's happened with Meath football. Like, Colm O'Rourke going in there, I always have my question marks and reservations about that appointment, because he'd been out of management for so long. Like in terms of senior intercounty, he'd never been a senior intercounty management before. The game's completely changed from when he would have played the game. And yeah, like it's just been an absolute nosedive. And like when you look at it, they barely even laid a glove on Offaly here. Do you know what I mean? They barely even came close to winning this game. Like it was a whitewash from start to finish.
And the game was over nearly at half time. Like Meath needed a serious intervention to get back into the game, and 2 points in the first half. That is really poor for Meath. And jokes aside and all that, they only scored through Linehan and Costello in the first half, 22nd and 29th minute. To go 20 minutes without a score in what looked to be actually a nice day in Tullamore. It's very poor from Meath. And even look at the last few games. Again, it's amazing how fortunes can change for a team. Because after the Clare game, we were thinking Meath could be on a promotion charge. Colm O'Rourke has got them back into contention for actually contending for Sam Maguire place. But then all of a sudden, they're in the Tailteann Cup now, and deservedly so. When you look at it, like if they didn't score a bunch of goals against Clare and Cork, they could have finished bottom of Division 2. That's how pretty bad Meath football has gone at the moment. And it's incredible the way they've fallen. But then again, like down against Donegal, I kind of expected Offaly to beat Meath today because of the way Meath football has been over the last while. It's going to be very difficult to see how Meath with the Tailteann Cup after this. But credit has to go to Offaly. Like, I know we'll talk about Meath and the downfall. 7 All-Irelands in the Tailteann Cup is a bit of a disgrace for them. But for Offaly, what a win for them. To get to Croke Park, I think, when is the last time actually Offaly were in the Leinster semi-final in Croke Park? I think it was about 08, 09 sometime. So, pretty good achievement for Offaly to get there. And finally, the youth is coming to fruition for Offaly. And we wouldn't have said that at the start of the year with Johnny Maloney gone, with Niall McNamee leaving the panel as well over the last few months. And obviously, the tragic passing of Liam Kearns, the players must have gone through a whole lot. But today, I think Liam Kearns will be looking down at the Offaly players today of all days and will be absolutely proud of the way they performed.
Absolutely. You have to commend Offaly and fair play to them for seeing this game through and coming out with the win as well. And I've seen some of the full-time scenes, the Offaly players jumping around, and obviously a huge moment for Offaly football. Like, as much as Meath have fallen, you do have to give a lot of credit, I think, to Offaly and the fact that, you know, they were able to keep Meath out in terms of goals as well, which I think was a big plus from an Offaly perspective. A few comments coming in here. They seem to have disappeared on me for some reason, so we'll get back to them in just a minute. But yeah, like, I mean, Colm O'Rourke, like, it's hard to know if it's working, to be honest with you. I think there was a few comments coming in there saying, does he stay? Does he, you know, will he be there next year? Like, it's just, like, I know there's been injuries and everything else, and like, I think Jordan Morris, isn't in the panel anymore from what I heard. Like, a few injuries here and there, a few different things, but like, surely it can't be this bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, Meath are a big traditional county that, you know, they were minor All-Ireland champions a couple of years ago. And I know it will take a bit of time before those players come into the senior team, but like, what's happened? Like, it's hard to know how they've fallen so quickly.
And on Jordan Morris, actually, I've seen the Scorpio app. He's actually on the team. So yeah, so I don't know where he got that story from. But when you look at the players Meath have, actually, Costello, O'Sullivan, Linehan, Cathal Hickey, Jack Flynn, Dahi McGowan, Pádraig Harnan, like, those players aren't the type of players to lose a game so tamely as they did today. So I think something has to be wrong in the backroom scene. Like, it's kind of hard to envisage, really, because it seemed to be a feel-good factor after the Cork and Clare games, despite scoring goals, vigorously to win games and not scoring much points. But the feel-good factor seemed to be in Meath football. But it seems has just dissipated in the last few games. I don't know what it is with Meath. They've stopped playing under O'Rourke. You know, the fight isn't there. I don't know what it is, but it's just very, very poor to watch. You look at Rado's success in the All-Ireland Club Championship as well, reaching the Leinster semi-final, which is considered a success for Meath clubs. And you would think, and with the underage success with the minors in 2021, and who would have imagined, like, All-Ireland minor champions in 2021, 2 years later, their seniors would see themselves in the Tailteann Cup. You know, it's some drop for Meath, some drop. And yeah, it's back to the drawing board for Meath, and they definitely want to win the Tailteann Cup now. There's some parts of Meath that actually want to win the Tailteann Cup to, confirm their superiority, but there is an element as well. Some of the players actually might leave after this. They might just say, what's the point? If we're going to keep getting results like this, we're just going to leave for America, we're going to leave for Australia, we're going in an early summer holiday, and the panel will break up. This is going to be detrimental for Meath football in the next few years, and next few weeks, never mind years as well. So it's going to be a tough few weeks and a tough year or so for Meath coming up as well.
It definitely will be. It definitely will be. Certainly a lot of soul searching and everything else will be happening in Meath. And even I was seeing Davy Rispin, who's been on the podcast before, of course, to chat about Meath. He was even tweeting out saying, I think he's never seen a more subdued atmosphere going into a championship game. It was almost like a good portion of the county nearly thought that they were going to get beat, you know, and that's absolute mad. Like, when you're coming up against a team like Offaly, like, and all, you know, you got to give Offaly their credit, but like, Meath should be doing better, in my opinion. You know, they definitely should be. But the team that Offaly will be playing in the Leinster final will be Louth. They obviously got themselves, or Leinster semi-final, I should say, will be Louth. Getting ahead of myself a little bit there. But big result for them against Westmeath. And them versus Offaly in the semi-finals.
We're just going to give Louth and Offaly fans, the poor lads, hope there.
Put them straight into the final. Like, half of Dublin don't even care about Leinster anymore anyway.
You should just have a Leinster B championship and give the Leinster straight into those, because they deserve it more than Dublin. Simple as. But very good win for Louth in this game. Like, they were 194 points down at half time. I was looking at this as Scorpio and thinking, Louth are under the cosh here. Westmeath could easily win this game. And I think 5 of Westmeath's 6 forwards actually scored in the first half, which was remarkable. Westmeath were definitely hitting the lights out. But then Louth in the second half, they turned it around, and fair play to them, they got the win. And Louth seemed to have a habit of this as well. Like, I think they were losing half time against Cork, against Meath, and now today. and they turned around all of those games and won them. So fair play to them for that, and very good win for Louth in this game. But it's not particularly bad for Westmeath either. Like Sam Maguire Cup, they knew they were in there already. If they produced a decent performance today, like if they produced a terrible performance and lost by they're close to 10 points, then there'll be a bit of soul searching going on with Daisy Dolan in his first year. But they put up a good performance. They just lost their way a bit in the second half, and Louth capitalised. And let's not forget Louth, in terms of the Alliance League ranking, they're 11th. So Westmeath were facing them, and Westmeath are around, I think it's 19th in the ranking. So, Westmeath did themselves proud today, in fairness, look at the rankings there. But Louth will go marching into the Leinster semi-final, the first time since 2010. And we all know what happened that year.
Yeah. And I was thinking about it, like it would be like for both Louth and Offaly, it'd be the first time either one of those is in a Leinster final. Like Louth, it would be their first Leinster final appearance since 2010, as you said. And I think Offaly's last Leinster final appearance, thinking off the top of my head, I think was 2006, I think, when they played Dublin in the Leinster final. So I mean, it's a big occasion for both Offaly and Louth, and whoever wins that game will have their occasion in Croke Park. They'll be the underdogs, obviously, most likely playing Dublin, but it'd be great for one of those two to have their day out in Croke Park in a Leinster final.
It will be, yeah. And I think I was thinking about this earlier today. It would be more of a prize for Offaly because Sam Maguire football, Louth are in there for definite, judging by how the provincial championships have gone and the way they finished the league, and fair play to them. But I think it would be more to Offaly to get there, because they'll be in the All-Ireland Championship if they get there. But if Louth get there, it won't particularly matter, and they'll get a hammering off Dublin in the final anyway. So, I genuinely think, I was thinking about this as well. I don't know what you think yourself. Would you be better off just going out at the semi-final stage with a bit of confidence rather than getting a tanking off Dublin in the final? Like it's a difficult one to know. But Mickey Hart maybe set out in the early stage of his tenure with Louth, saying that you need to get to a Leinster final. So maybe there's that element too. So we will have to see how it plays out. But honestly, on the outset, I think it honestly means more to Offaly than it does to Louth to reach a Leinster final because of the implications it will have.
Yeah, it is a fair point. In fairness, the last game then in Leinster, I suppose, last but not least, depending on where you're from, I suppose, it was Kildare 117, Wicklow 10 points. Looking on score BO, like I think at half time it was 10 points to 5. Wicklow were keeping up the pace with Kildare, but I suppose it's just different levels, isn't it? Wicklow obviously coming up from Division 4, Kildare obviously in Division 2. Like and fair play to Kildare, like they, there was no upset, there was no shock here. They done what they had to do and they won the game.
Yeah, and they got the job done, unlike Meath. So fair play to Kildare for getting there. Like a 10-point margin is actually pretty comprehensive considering the way Wicklow played under Oisin McConville as well. So fair play to Kildare. They got the win in the end, and very good win going into the Dublin game. But I think they'll be going into the Leinster semi-final now with a bit of gritted teeth now, because they'll have to hope that Armagh beat down and that Laois beat Offaly to get into the Sam Maguire Cup. And two of those games aren't involved with Kildare. So it's going to be a tense few hours next week for Kildare fans to see if they're into Sam Maguire, because let's be honest, I don't think they're going to beat Dublin. Unpopular opinion, but they're just not going to beat Dublin in Croke Park. So, Kildare will be hoping that Louth and Armagh do them a favour and get into the Sam Maguire. If they go into the Tailteann Cup, it'll be a bit of a disaster for Kildare. And who would have imagined at the start of the year? Well, it hasn't happened yet, no, necessarily, but Meath and Kildare will both be in the Tailteann Cup. Pretty incredible. But as for today, very good performance. They brushed aside a Wicklow side on form by 10 points. Job done really for Glenn Ryan on his side.
Absolutely. No, yeah, very, very comprehensive win in the end. And I think that's 3 wins now on the bounce, I think, for Kildare. So definitely coming into a good run of form after a very difficult start to 2023. In fairness, I suppose before we finish up, who would be our player of the week and I suppose moment of the week?
Player of the week? Well, I have to go for Conor Championship for scoring 7 points, and his brilliant performances over the last few weeks or so, the last 3 games, has been utterly incredible. And considering the guy he was replacing as well for just a small bit of time in Rian O'Neill, brilliant performance from him. Moment of the week, I'd probably have to go Offaly's win over Meath. The scenes that Offaly fans had, I think Brian Gavin mentioned it on Twitter as well after the game. which was incredible to see, and great to see Offaly back in Croke Park, and hopefully better days are coming for Offaly football.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Like, I think, for me, player of the week, I'd probably go for Damian Coleman. I think scored 1-4. And then moment of the week, I'd probably agree. I think Offaly's win over Meath was definitely the moment of the week. I think Down beating Donegal, big result. And even for Galway supporters beating Roscommon as well, I think quantifies as a good moment of the week, in fairness. But I suppose we'll wrap things up here. Make sure to, I suppose, leave a like and subscribe if you could. Let us know your thoughts on some of the games in the comments down below. And make sure to check out Matthew's podcast as well, the GA Statsman podcast, when you get a chance. And Matthew, cheers for coming on, and we'll speak to everyone soon.